The words hit the air like a sudden crack of thunder. "You can't leave." The clerk's whisper trembled, but it carried more weight than a scream. I stood frozen at the counter inside the federal building, my fingers clenched tightly around 12 wrinkled dollars and an eviction notice that had already decided my future. I had come here for one thing: a passport stamp, a small mark that would let me take a janitor job across the border. I wasn't asking for much, just work, just survival. Instead, the space between us lit up with a violent, pulsing red. A silent alarm began to spin on the wall, flashing like a warning meant for criminals, not people like me. My heart slammed against my ribs. 2 armed guards stepped forward at once, their hands resting near their holsters, their faces hard and trained. "Ma'am," the clerk said, her hands shaking as badly as mine. "This social security number belongs to a child who died in 1991. The world tilted under my feet. "Dead." The word echoed in my head, hollow and wrong. I was standing right there, breathing, alive. My mouth opened, ready to fight back, to explain, to insist there had been a mistake. But before a single word could escape, the elevator doors slid open behind the guards. A man stepped out. He wore a sharp black suit that looked out of place in the dull government hallway. He moved with calm purpose, walking straight through the armed perimeter as if it didn't exist. The guards didn't stop him. They didn't even question him. He didn't look at them at all. His eyes locked onto mine. What terrified me wasn't anger. It wasn't suspicion. It was recognition. He stopped 2 feet in front of me and spoke 3 words that erased everything I thought I knew. "Welcome back, Noah." My name. Not Mara. Not the name I had carried like a stain my entire life. Noah. The ground seemed to vanish beneath me. Everything I had been, everything I believed about myself, shattered in that moment. I didn't end up in a holding cell. I wasn't shoved into handcuffs or chained to a cold metal table. Instead, the man, Mr. Sterling, guided me into a quiet, soundproof office that smelled like leather and expensive coffee. He didn't read me my rights. He didn't threaten me. He poured a glass of ice water and set it on the mahogany desk with careful hands. "Drink," he said. "You're in shock." I took the glass. The ice rattled loudly because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I was 32 years old. I had spent 14 years scrubbing floors, serving food, dodging eviction notices, believing I was nothing more than an unwanted stepdaughter in a small town. I believed I was Mara, the mistake, the burden no one wanted. Sterling slid a thick file folder toward me. He didn't open it right away. His hand rested on it, steady and certain. "We've been looking for you for 3 decades, Noah," he said. He opened the folder. Inside wasn't a mugshot. It was an image. A digital age progression photo of a young woman. She had my eyes, my jaw, my nose. But she didn't look tired. She didn't look worn down by life. She looked safe. She looked loved. "That," he said gently, "is who you would have been if you hadn't been taken." My chest tightened as he continued. My real name was Noah Hayes. My family had built a fortune in Texas oil. They would trade all of it just to see me again. I had been kidnapped from a park in 1991. The room spun. I gripped the arms of the leather chair to keep myself grounded. The word kidnapped should have terrified me, but instead it unlocked something deep inside me. Suddenly, everything made sense. Richard, the man I called my stepfather, the sheriff who told me I was trash, the man who made me sleep on a cot in the laundry room while his daughter Bianca slept in the master bedroom. I thought he hated me because I was difficult, because I was unwanted. But now I understood the truth. He didn't hate me because I was bad. He hated me because I was evidence. Tears spilled fast and hot. Not from fear, but from relief so powerful it hurt. I wasn't broken. I wasn't a burden. I was something stolen and hidden away. Sterling slid a sleek black phone across the desk. My real parents were on a private jet, landing soon. I was safe here. Federal territory. No one could touch me. For the first time in my life, the ground felt solid. I wasn't the girl clutching an eviction notice anymore. I was Noah Hayes. I was going home. I reached for the phone. My guard finally dropped. I let myself believe it was over. That was my mistake. The door didn't open. It exploded inward. Two deputies stormed in, boots slamming against the polished floor, hands on their weapons. And behind them came Richard. He wasn't wearing flannel. He was in full sheriff's uniform, his badge shining under the lights. He didn't look at Sterling. He stared straight at me. His eyes were empty. "Step away from the suspect," he ordered. Sterling moved in front of me, stating this was federal jurisdiction. Richard slapped a folded paper onto the desk. "A warrant. Felony charges. Grand larceny." He pointed at me, the same finger that had once shoved me as a child. I screamed the truth. But it didn't matter. A deputy twisted my arm behind my back. Pain exploded through my shoulder. The cuffs snapped shut. Sterling hesitated. Richard knew the law. He was using it like a weapon. I begged. Sterling's face burned with anger, but he couldn't draw his gun. Richard leaned in close, his voice a poison meant only for me. He told me I should never have dug, never tried to find the truth. He promised I would die before my real parents ever reached the ground. Fear drained the warmth from my body. He wasn't taking me to jail. He was taking me to silence me forever. He dragged me into the hallway. The lights blurred overhead. My boots scraped against the floor. His grip was tight, familiar, cruel. The hallway faded. I was 18 again. Standing on a porch with a garbage bag of clothes. It was raining. I was shivering, not from the cold, but from the terrifying realization that I had nowhere to go. Inside the house, through the bay window, I could see Theme eating dinner. Richard and his biological daughter, Bianca. They were cutting into thick, bleeding steaks. The warm yellow light of the chandelier glinted off the crystal glasses. I had just eaten a cold sandwich made from the heel of the bread loaf because Richard said steak was for people who contributed. I remembered knocking on the glass begging to come back in just for the night. Richard had opened the door, looming over me just like he was looming over me now. "You should be on your knees thanking me," he had said. His voice was dripping with that sick self-righteous poison. "I kept a roof over your head for 10 years. I fed you. I clothed you. And you weren't even me blood. Do you know what a burden you are, Mara? Do you know how expensive it is to keep a mistake?" And I had believed it. God help me. I had believed him. I had fallen to my knees on that wet concrete and thanked him for the scraps. I had spent the next 14 years carrying the weight of that debt, believing I wasn't worthy, believing I owed the university an apology just for existing. But that was the trap. The realization hit me harder than the handcuffs. It wasn't charity. It was camouflage. He hadn't been raising a stepdaughter. He had been hiding a witness. Every time he made me feel small, every time he told me I was lucky, he didn't throw me in the street. He was grooming me. He was training me to be grateful for my own prison. He needed me broken so I wouldn't ask questions. He needed me desperate so I wouldn't look at my own birth certificate. He wasn't my savior. He was me warden. The fear that had been choking me since I walked into the building evaporated. It didn't fade. It was incinerated by a white-hot flash of your clarifying rage. He thought he was dragging a scared little girl to jail. He thought he was handling Mara, the burden. But Mara didn't exist anymore. It dug my heels into the floor. I stopped fighting the deputy's grip and instead went completely limp, dropping my entire body weight. It's a trick you learn when you're trying to move heavy furniture alone. Dead weight is impossible to move gracefully. The sudden drop caught Theme off guard. The deputy on my left stumbled, his grip slipping. We jerked to a halt 10 feet from the elevator bank. "Get up," Richard snarled, yanking on my arm. "Stop making a scene." I didn't get up. I planted my feet and slowly straightened my spine, pulling against handcuffs until the chain was taut. I turned my head and looked directly into Richard's eyes. For the first time in my life, I didn't flinch. I didn't look down. I looked right at the man who had stolen my life, and I let him see exactly what he had created. The victim was gone. The witness was awake, and she was about to burn his world to the ground. Check the timestamp. My scream tore through the lobby, echoing off the marble walls like a gunshot. It wasn't a plea for help. It was an order. The deputies hesitated, looking down at me. For a split second, the confusion on their faces gave me the opening I needed. I didn't try to stand up. I locked eyes with Sterling, who was running toward us, his hand reaching for the radio on his shoulder. "The warrant," I yelled, my voice cracking but loud. Check the time he signed it. Richard kicked my leg hard. Shut her up. Get her in the elevator. But it was too late. Sterling didn't slow down. He didn't ask questions. He threw his body weight against the elevator doors just as they were sliding shut, forcing them back open with a screech of metal. Two uniformed Federal Protective Service officers materialized from the security pont, their hands on their weapons blocking Richard's path. "Hold it," Sterling barked. His voice wasn't the calm, soothing tone he'd used in the office. It was the voice of a man who commanded federal task forces. "Nabadimos. This is obstruction of justice," Richard roared, sweat beading on his forehead. "I am a sheriff, and I am executing a lawful arrest. Let me see the warrant," Sterling demanded, holding out his hand. He didn't ask. He waited. Richard clutched the paper to his chest for a second. A telepoker player hiding a bad hand. Then, realizing he had 3 federal guns pointed in his general direction, he shoved the crumpled paper at Sterling. "Read it and weep. Agent Grand Larceny signed by Judge Miller this morning." Sterling snapped the paper open. He scanned items, then looked up at the digital clock above the security desk. Then he looked at the security monitors behind the guard station. "You're sloppy, Richard," Sterling said, his voice dropping to a terrifying calm. He turned the paper around so the deputies could see it. "This warrant was signed at 8:00 sharp." He pointed a finger at the security monitor on the wall, but my building's cameras logged Mara entering through the north metal detectors at 7:45 a.m. The lobby went dead silent. "She's been in federal custody since she walked in," Sterling said, stepping closer to Richard. "Unless she can't teleport, she couldn't have stolen jewelry from your house at 8 o'clock if she was standing in my lobby 15 minutes earlier." The deputies holding the loosened their grip. They looked at each other, then at Richard. They realized they weren't executing an arrest. They were accomplices to a kidnapping in progress. "It's a typo," Richard shouted, spit flying from his mouth. "The clerk made a mistake on the time. She stole it last night. The warrant says this morning." Sterling countered. "And if you lead on a sworn affidavit to get this in, that's perjury. If you're trying to drag a federal witness out of here on falsified charges, that's kidnapping," Sterling signaled to his guards. "Release her now." The deputies let go of my arms like I was on fire. I scrambled backward across the floor, putting distance between myself and the man who had stolen my life. Richard stood alone in the center of the circle. His face was a mask of purple rage. He looked at his deputies who were backing away. He looked at Sterling, who was staring him down with cold contempt. He looked at me, standing up, rubbing my bruised wrists. No longer the scared girl heckled bully into silence. He realized he couldn't talk his way out of this. His authority didn't work here. And that's when he broke. "I'm not leaving without her," Richard screamed. His hand flew to his belt. He didn't draw his service pistol. He knew that would get him killed instantly. Instead, he ripped his taser from its holster, the yellow plastic gleaming under the lobby lights. He leveled it at Sterling. "Back off," he yelled, his voice cracking with desperation. "I am taking custody of this suspect. Anyone who interferes gets dropped." He was insane. He was holding a federal agent at gunpoint in a federal building. But I looked at his eyes, wide and frantic, and I realized he wasn't trying to arrest me anymore. Heck knew it was over. He was just trying to survive the next 5 minutes. The guards reacted instantly. 3 Glock 17s snapped up, trained on Richard's chest. "Drop the weapon," Sterling ordered. "Yow." For a moment, it looked like Richard might force them to shoot him out of spite. Then the madness drained from his ease. He wasn't a martyr, just a bully. He tossed a taser to the marble floor and raised his hands. "Fine," he sneered. "Let's do this properly." He reached into his jacket. The guard tensed, but he pulled out a document, snapping it open with practiced flair. "You caught me," Richard said lightly. "The warrant was fake. I knew about the kidnapping. I helped cover it up." He looked straight at me, smiling. "I kept you. I hid you. I stole your life." Sterling stepped forward with cuffs. "That's a confession. You're under arrest." Richard laughed. "No, I'm not. Check the calendar. The kidnapping happened in 1991. The statute of limitations expired in 2011. The room went silent. Sterling didn't move, Richard seized the moment. You can't take me for kidnapping or fraud. I walk in legally, you're still incompetent. I control your assets. He turned for Theodore. I'm suing all of you. You're right about the statute, Sterling said calmly, stopping him mid-step. But you forgot one rule. Richard frowned. Which is? Sterling lifted a thick file. The constructivist doctrine. You don't own property obtained through fraud. You hold it for the victim. The file hit the bench with a thud. We traced the ransom payments, the foster stipends, the investments. That's my money, Richard snapped. No, I said, stepping forward. You just manage it for me. Sterling's voice was cold. Civil fraud doesn't expire when the victim was a minor. Your assets are frozen. Your house is seized. Your accounts belong to the victim. Hap pointed at me. It all belongs to Noah. Richard recoiled, terrified. Not of person, but of losing everything. Butim the sheriff. You laundered money and filed false taxes. Sterling cut in. Those clocks are still running. Thiegards moved this time. Richard screamed as the cuffs snapped shut. You're no thing, I whispered. The lobby fell quiet. Sterling slid a paper toward me. Asset transfer authorization. Sell it, I said, signing. Just make sure he never goes back. I had nothing left. Booty was free. Sunlight flooded the lobbyist too. Figures rushed in. I didn't need proof. I felt it in my bones. Noah, the woman whispered. I'm here. They held me like they'd never let go. For the first time, I was